everyone, I am Nervis Pihabal and I am the leader of Group 4 Reporters. Today, we're still in the continuation of the discussion of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. But today, we're going to tackle the Articles 4, 5, 6, and 7. Let's begin. Do you know what this picture is? Right. It means citizenship. Now, what is citizenship? Citizenship is a state of being a member of a specific country and having a right because of it. In the Article 4 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, it talks about citizenship. In the Section 1, it outlines who are considered to be the citizens of the Philippines. First, those who were citizens at the time the Constitution was adopted. Second, those with Filipino fathers and mothers. Third, those born before January 17, 1973 to Filipino mothers who choose Philippine citizenship upon reaching adulthood. So, what happened before January 17, 1973? Before January 17, 1973, the 1935 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines was in effect, which primarily defined citizenship based on the right of blood. Meaning, citizenship was passed down through Filipino parents. However, under this Constitution, only those who have Filipino fathers automatically gain Philippine citizenship. Children born to Filipino mother and foreign father did not gain Philippine citizenship. On January 17, 1973, the new constitution introduced a provision allowing those born before this date to Filipino mothers to elect Philippine citizenship when they reach the age of majority, providing them with an opportunity that wasn't introduced earlier. 4 is naturalized citizens according to law. So, to understand more, I will give you an example. So, example, a child born in 2023 to a Filipino mother in the US is automatically a Filipino citizen by parentage because his mother is a Filipino. Now, moving on to Section 2. Section 2 defines natural-born citizens. Natural-born citizens as those who are citizens from birth without needing any legal actions. People electing citizenship under Section 1, number 3 are also considered natural-born. So, those who are born with Filipino mothers before January 17, 1973 are considered natural-born citizens. Section 3 states that citizenship can be lost or regained by law. Example, a Filipino who becomes a citizen of another country may lose Filipino citizenship but could potentially regain it later. Section 4 clarifies that Filipinos marrying foreigners keep their citizenship unless they renounce it by law. Example, a Filipino who marries a Canadian does not automatically lose their citizenship unless they want to lose it permanently. They don't want it anymore. So they can process it and remove their Filipino citizenship. Section 5 mentions that dual allegiance is against national interests and will be addressed by law. Example, a Filipino citizen serving in another country's government could face legal restrictions. That's all for citizenship. I hope you understand. Now, I have a question. Could you tell what section in the Article 4 tells that you are a Filipino citizen? Now, let's let's move on. I have another picture here. Could you guess what they do? Yes, they are voting. They are exercising their suffrage. Now, what is suffrage? Very unfamiliar word, right? Because we don't encounter that word on a daily basis. But it is important for us to know what suffrage is because it is our right. Suffrage, according to Google, is the right to vote in a political election. In the Article 5 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, it talks about suffrage. Now, let's start. In the Section 1 of the 1987, Section 1, Article 5 of the 1987 Constitution, states that all Filipino citizens who are at least 18 years old and have lived in the Philippines for 1 year and in the place they want to vote for at least 6 months can vote unless disqualified by law. There are no extra requirements like being able to read and to have a property. For example, Maria, who is 20 years old and had lived in the Philippines for 2 years and recently moved to Cebu and stayed there for 6 months, can go to Cebu. She does not need to pass a reading test and she does not need a property just to be able to vote. Just like that. Now, let's move on to Section 2. Section 2 states that Congress will create a system to protect the privacy of voting, allow Filipinos abroad to vote, and help disabled or illiterate people to vote without help. Until this system is ready, they can vote under current laws with protections from the Commission of Election. So, let's have an example. Juan is a Filipino citizen who lives and works abroad in Dubai. Congress has created a system for absentee voting for Filipinos living overseas. So Juan registers and votes at the Philippine Embassy in Dubai. Meanwhile, Anna, who is visually impaired, wants to vote in the Philippines. Congress has designed a special system that allows Anna to vote privately without needing someone to help her fill out her ballot. Until these systems are fully implemented, the Commission of Elections has rules in place to protect their privacy when they vote. So, that's all for suffrage. I hope you've learned. And let's move on to Article 6. The 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, Article 6, talks about Legislative Department. Now, what is Legislative Department? According to Google, Legislative Department is a branch or a part of the government that is responsible for making, amending, or appealing laws. Here in our country, the Philippines, the legislative power is held by the Congress, which includes the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate represents the whole country, while House represents specific regions or districts. Together, they propose, debate, and vote on laws that will govern our country. So I will sum up everything to you. The Section 1 states that legislative power belongs to the Congress of the Philippines, made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives. They are the ones who hold the legislative power. The people also hold some power through initiative and referendum. We still have the power. Section 2 states that the Senate has 24 senators elected nationwide by qualified voters as set by law. Example is Robin Padilla. Section 3 states that to be a senator, a person must be a natural-born Filipino citizen, at least 35 years old, able to read and write, a registered voter, and a president of the Philippines for at least 2 years before the election. So, as you can see, our standard for the senators is so very low. Artists, influencers, bloggers nowadays are running for a government position without even have the knowledge in the government. These standards allows corrupt people to enter our government. So we need to be knowledgeable and to be wise enough to vote for our leaders, our servant leaders. Right? Section 4 states that senators serve as 6-year terms starting on June 30 after their election and can serve no more than 2 consecutive terms, which is 12 years. Resigning doesn't break their term continuity. Section 5, number 1 states that the House Representatives has up to 250 members elected from districts based on population, along with members elected via a party list system representing various groups. Second, party list representatives make up 20% of the House. For the first 3 terms after the Constitution's ratification, half of the party list seats will be filled by representatives of labor, peasant, and other specified sectors, excluding religious groups. So example of this are sectors like labor, urban, poor, women, youth, and indigenous communities. However, religious sectors are not eligible for these reserved seats. Number 3, each district must be as compact and connected as possible. Cities with at least 250,000 people and each province get at least 1 representative. Number 4, Congress will adjust legislative districts based on population every 3 years after census. So, example, a census is conducted and population number are updated. Within the 3 years, Congress reviews legislative districts to ensure that they accurately represents the population and adjusts them if necessary. So, that's all for my report. Again, this is Nervis Ihabal.
On the Section 6 of the Philippines Constitution details the qualification of the House Representative members. A candidate must be natural-born Filipino citizen, at least 25 years old on the election day, and literate. Unless and representing a party list, a registered voter who was resident in their district for at least 1 year prior to the election. And Section 7 of the Philippines Constitution dictates that House Representative serve 3 years term beginning on June 30 following their election, unless otherwise legislated. The representative is limited to 3 consecutive term. A lengthy voluntary resignation doesn't receive the term limit. And Section 8 of the Philippines Constitution established the regular election day for the Senate and Representative as the second Monday of May, unless the laws specify otherwise. And Section 9 allows a special election to fill vacancies in the Senate and the House Representative. The individual elected on the special election will only serve the remaining portion. Section 10 states the salary of the senator and the House Representative determined by legislation, but any salary increase cannot take effect until after the next general election. This ensures that any pay raise is subject to voter approval, preventing self-serving increases. On Section 11, grant senators and representatives immunity from arrest during the congressional session for offenses punishable by 6 years in prison or less. This privilege also extends to freedom from being questioned or held accountable outside of Congress for the statement made during the session or committee meetings. On Section 12, mandates full financial and commercial disclosure to all senators and representatives upon assuming office. This ensure transparency and allow for the identification potential conflict to interest when they propose legislation. Section 13 prohibits senators and representatives from holding any other government position or jobs, including a government-owned or controlled corporation during their term in office.
Section 14 of the Philippine Constitution prohibits senators and members of the House of Representatives from appearing as counsel in any court or administrative body. They also cannot have financial interest in government contracts or privileges during their term, nor intervene for personal gain in government matters. They cannot have financial interests in government contracts, franchises, or privileges, nor intervene in matters for personal gain. This aims to prevent conflicts of interest in the government and ensure that lawmakers prioritize public service over personal profit. For example, a senator cannot represent a client in a case against the government, or a congressman cannot invest in a government project while in office. This ensures integrity and prevents conflict in the government. So, Section 15 of the Philippine Constitution establishes that Congress convenes annually of the fourth Monday of July unless otherwise specified by law. It remains in session for a duration determined by Congress, concluding 30 days before the next regular session, excluding weekends and holidays. The President shall call special sessions anytime. For example, if Congress decides to meet for 60 days, it would adjourn approximately 30 days before the next session begins. So a special session might be called during a national emergency to address urgent legislation. Section 16 outlines the organization and operational rules for legislative departments. So one of these is the record keeping, disciplinary powers, leadership elections, and quorum requirements. So for example, if a senator behaves disruptively, the Senate may impose suspension for at least 60 days following the 2/3 votes. Section 17 of the Philippine Constitution establishes the Electoral Tribunal for both the Senate and the House of Representatives. This tribunal is responsible for adjudicating disputes regarding elections, returns, and qualification of their members. Each tribunal consists of 9 members, 3 Supreme Court justices, and 6 elected legislators from the respective house. So, for example, if a candidate contests the election results claiming the irregularities, and the Electoral Tribunal would investigate and resolve the dispute. A situation where a member's eligibility is questioned due to residency issues would also fall under the tribunal's jurisdiction. Section 18 of the Philippine Constitution establishes the Commission on Appointments, which consists of the President of the Senate, Chairman, 12 senators, and 12 members of the House of Representatives. So, for example, confirming cabinet members or ambassadors. If a tie occurs, the chairman casts the deciding votes. Section 19 of the Philippine Constitution establishes the electoral tribunals and the Commission on Appointments in the Philippines. So these bodies must be formed within 30 days after the Senate and the House of Representatives are organized. The Commission on Appointments meets only during congressional sessions to confirm appointments, presidential appointments, ensuring a check on executive power. So for example, it confirms cabinet members and military officers. The electoral tribunals handle election disputes regarding congressional members, ensuring electoral integrity. Article 20 of the Philippine Constitution mandates that the records and financial accounts of Congress be preserved and made publicly accessible, subject to legal regulations. So these records are audited by the Commission on Audit, which must annually publish a detailed report of payments and expenses for member. For example, annual financial reports detailing salaries and allowances for members, public access to congressional records such as the congressional record which documents legislative proceedings and debates. Section 21 of the Philippine Constitution allows the Senate or House of the Representatives to conduct inquiries in aid of legislation, following their established rules. This power enables them to investigate matters related to existing laws or proposed legislation, while ensuring the rights of individuals involved are respected. For example, investigating the use of government funds during a crisis, such as the Senate inquiry into pharmaceuticals regarding COVID-19 funds, examining compliance with labor laws through committee hearings on employment practices. Section 22 of the Philippine Constitution allows heads of departments to appear before either House of Congress, either on their own initiative with the President's consent or upon request from the House. So they must submit written questions at least 3 days prior to their appearance, although discussions can extend beyond these questions. So, if necessary, for state security, the session may be held in private executive session. So, for example, a Secretary of Health may present updates on public health initiatives. So, the Secretary of Education, another example is the Secretary of Education could discuss funding and policy changes in schools. Section 23. This section also allows Congress to authorize the President to exercise necessary powers during national emergencies, subject to specific restrictions and time limits. This section also grants Congress the exclusive authority to declare a state of war, requiring a 2/3 majority vote from both houses in joint sessions. So, for example, the Congress declared a state of war during World War II. In emergency powers, in response to natural disasters, Congress may grant the President temporary powers to expedite relief efforts. Section 24 of the Philippine Constitution mandates that specific types of bills, including appropriation, revenue, tariff, and debt increasing bills, must originate in the House of Representatives. The Senate can propose amendments but cannot initiate these bills. For example, a bill to increase federal funding for education must start in the House, while the Senate can suggest changes to it after its introduction. This ensures that the House, which is more directly accountable to the electorate, controls financial legislation. Section 25 of the Philippine Constitution outlines the limitations on Congress regarding budget appropriations, budget constraints. Congress cannot increase the appropriations recommended by the President for government operations as specified in the budget. Specificity in appropriations, no unrelated provisions may be included in the General Appropriations Bill. Each must relate specifically to an appropriation. Approval procedures. The procedure for appropriating funds for Congress must align with that of other government departments. For example, if the President proposes a budget of 100 million pesos for education, Congress cannot allocate more than this amount. Section 26 of the Philippine Constitution outlines legislative procedures for bills. Single subject rule: each bill must address only one subject, which should be clearly stated in its title. For example, a bill titled "An Act to Regulate Traffic" cannot include unrelated topics like education reforms. 3 readings requirement: a bill must undergo 3 readings on separate days before becoming law, ensuring thorough scrutiny. Exceptions apply in emergencies certified by the President, such as natural disasters requiring immediate funding. Section 28 of the Philippine Constitution outlines taxation principles and the delegation of tariff setting authority. Uniform taxation: it mandates that taxation must be uniform and equitable, with Congress responsible for evolving a progressive tax system. Presidential authority: Congress can authorize the President to set tariff rates and quotas within specified limits, ensuring adherence to national development programs. Examples: the government may impose a uniform income tax rate while allowing the President to adjust import tariffs based on economic needs. Charitable institutions are exempt from taxes, illustrating the equitable aspect of taxation. Section 29 of the Philippine Constitution mandates that public funds can only be disbursed following legal appropriations. It prohibits the use of public money for religious purposes, except for military or penal institutions. For example, funds collected from a specific tax must be used solely for the designated purpose. If unused, they revert to the general fund. A case illustrating this is when public funds were challenged for being used to print stamps for a religious organization, which was deemed unconstitutional under this section. Section 30 of the Philippine Constitution states that no law can be enacted to increase the Supreme Court's appellate jurisdiction without its advice and concurrence. This provision ensures that any expansion of the court's authority is subject to its approval, maintaining judicial independence. Examples: if Congress proposes a law allowing the Supreme Court to hear appeals from lower courts that it currently cannot, it must first consult with the court. A legislative attempt to broaden the types of cases eligible for Supreme Court review would require the court's input before the passage. Section 31 of the Philippine Constitution prohibits the enactment of laws granting titles of royalty or nobility in the United States. This clause reflects a fundamental American aversion to aristocracy, emphasizing equality among citizens. Citizens can hold foreign titles but risk losing U.S. citizenship if they accept them without congressional approval. This clause aims to prevent the establishment of a hereditary elite, maintaining a republican form of government free from aristocratic influences. For example, federal officials cannot accept titles from foreign governments without congressional consent. Section 32 of the Philippine Constitution mandates Congress to establish a system for initiative and referendum allowing citizens to propose laws or reject acts passed by the legislature. Examples include initiative. Citizens can propose a new law such as a local environmental ordinance by gathering signatures from at least 10% of registered voters with representation from every legislative district. Referendum. Voters may approve or reject a law such as a tax increase previously enacted by Congress following a similar petition process.
Section 1 grants the President executive authority, meaning they are responsible for carrying out laws and managing the government. Section 2 sets qualifications for the President. A natural-born Filipino citizen, a registered voter at least 40 years old, literates, and a residents of the Philippines for at least 10 years before the election. Section 3 creates the role of Vice President who shares the same qualification and terms as the President. The Vice President is elected alongside the President and also be appointed to the Cabinet without needing Senate confirmation. If the President is removed, the Vice President can also be removed in the same way. Section 4. This section outlines the rules for the election and terms of the President and Vice President. The President and Vice President are elected by direct popular vote for 6-year terms. Starting on June 30 after the elections, the President cannot be elected and if they have served more than 4 years after succeeding to the office, they are disqualified from running to President again. The Vice President can serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms if a President voluntarily steps down. It doesn't interrupt their terms of service duration. Section 5. Section 5 requires the President, Vice President, or Acting President to take an oath or affirmation before assuming office. The oath ensures that they will faithfully execute their duties, uphold the Constitution, and serve the people with integrity and responsibility. Section 6. Section 6 specifies that the President will have an official residence and the salaries of both President will be set by laws. Their salaries cannot be reduced during their time in office, and any increase in compensation will only take effect after their terms ends. Section 7 states that the President-elect and Vice President will officially assume their duties at the start of their respective terms, which begins on June 30 following the election. Section 8 outlines of succession for the presidency. If the president dies, becomes permanently disabled, is removed from office, or resign, the president assures that residency from the remainder of the terms. Section 9. Section 9 address what happened in the vice president office become vacant during their term. In such a case, the president must nominate a new vice president from among the members of the Senate, of the House, or representative. Section 10. Section 10 outlines the process of filling vacancies in both the president and vice president office. In both offices becomes vacant, Congress must meet automatically on the third day after the vacancy occurs. Section 11. Section 11 provides a process for when the president is temporarily unable to perform their duties or of their office. If the president submits a written declaration to the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives stating that they are unable to fulfill their responsibilities, the Vice President will temporarily assume the role of acting President. Section 12. Section 12 requires that if the President is seriously ill, the public must be informed about the President's health status.
Article 7 Executive Department. This section prohibits the President, Vice President, member of the Cabinet, and their deputies or assistants from holding any jobs during their tenure. It includes restriction on engaging in any business or professional that could potentially create conflict of interest. This provision is intended to prevent conflict between public duties and private interest. Section 14. This section prohibits the President, Vice President, member of the Cabinet, and their deputies of engaging in financial dealing with government, corporation, or company that may lead to conflict of interest. They must avoid this relationship to maintain the integrity of public office. Section 15. Restrict the President from making appointment 2 months before the next presidential election and until the end of his or her term, known as the Midnight Appointment Ban. It aimed to prevent outgoing president from making last-minute appointments that could serve their personal interests or political allies. Section 16. This section grants the President the power to appoint members of the Cabinet, heads of executive department, ambassador, and other public officials and military officers, subject to approval of the Commission on Appointment. The Commission role here is to ensure check and balance. Section 17. Section 17 emphasizes the President's duty to ensure that all laws are faithfully executed. This broad power makes the President responsible for law enforcement and essential for maintaining orders and upholding the rules of law. Section 18 grants the President authority over the armed force as Commander-in-Chief. This section also allows the President to declare martial law or suspend the writ of habeas corpus in case of invasion or rebellions with public safety requires it. However, there are limitations on this power as declaration of martial law or suspension of habeas corpus can only last 60 days unless extended by Congress. Section 19. This section grants the President the power to grant reprieve, commutation, and pardon as well to remit fines or forfeitures. However, this authority does not extend to case of impeachment. This section is part of the presidential ability to show mercy in justice system. Section 20. Give the President the power to contract or guarantee foreign loans on behalf of the Philippines, but only with the prior approval of Monetary Board. This oversight aims to prevent reckless borrowing and ensure that foreign loans are in country best interests. Section 21 mandates that the President provide the public with information on the state of the nation. This is done through the annual State of the Nation Address, SONA, which gives citizen and lawmaker an overview of the country's status, achievement, and challenges, while also outlining the President's legislative agenda. Section 22 grants the President the power to request report and document from executive department and agency to carry about executive duties. This provision ensures that the President can obtain necessary information for decision-making and oversight. Section 23 provides that the President as head of state can negotiate treaty and international agreement. However, treaties and international agreement need the concurrence of at least two-thirds of the Senate to become effective, ensuring legislative oversight in matters of foreign policy.